Hey, and welcome back to the Transparent HR podcast, where we bring real conversations to help you navigate your career and workplace challenges. It's your host, Prince Tate, and I'm so glad that you are here. If you've been enjoying the show, please subscribe and follow us, share with a friend, and leave us a review. It helps us to continue to bring you content that supports your career and workplace success. Today's episode is all about interviewing like a pro in 2025 and how you can stand out in this very competitive market. We've got an incredible guest lined up for you, so let's dive right in. My guest today is LaShaunique Plummer, a certified HR professional and global business partner who's passionate about helping professionals pivot into successful HR careers within just 90 days. She's also the host of her own podcast called the HR Pivot Podcast, where she empowers aspiring and current HR leaders with strategic career and leadership development insights. LaShaunique, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Oh, thrilled to be here. Thank you so much, friends, for that amazing introduction. Thank you.
Hey, it's your introduction, so I gotta make it a splash, right? So LaShaunique, tell us something fun or interesting about you.
Yeah, right now, one of the things that occupies a lot of my time is just being a boy auntie. I have three little nephews.
Oh,
One is
that's
six.
awesome.
Yeah, I got a 6-year-old and a 6-month old and a three-month old. So I'm really basking in all of that excitement.
Man, that is awesome. That is awesome. I can't begin to count the amount of nieces and nephews I have. Uh,
What?
believe it or not, I have 10 brothers and sisters. I think about 4 of them don't have kids, but everybody else has kids. I am a twin, just in case if you didn't know that. I have a
I
twin
know that.
sister, and she
Wow.
just had uh, another baby girl. So I have another niece into the family, and she was born on Valentine's Day.
My
So
God,
it was just a sweet
my
moment.
heart.
Yeah, it was such a sweet moment. Just
That's beautiful.
to experience that on Valentine's Day. So hey, I know we have a lot of boys in the family, so it's not that often we get a girl. But thank you for sharing that and allowing our listeners to get to know you a little more. So
Yeah.
let's dive in. We're talking about interviewing and really how to stand out in 2025 as you go to your interview. So I want to start off with this simple question. When should candidates start preparing for their interviews? And what are the first steps they should take? Should they wait to get a call? Or should they start practicing when they decide that, hey, I want to pivot or I want to get a new job?
I love that you asked this question for a couple of reasons because I think that this market is very interesting. And I did a podcast a while ago on my predictions for 2025.
Oh, wow.
And more companies are going to be merging and doing acquisitions, and there's just a lot of change. As a result, that means a couple things. There's going to be a lot of more people impacted by those, meaning you will be without, unfortunately, without something, right? And then on top of that, that also means changing your role. So you may not like your role, right? And so you might want to change. So there's just a lot there. And then also, people are pivoting more now than ever because COVID tired us out. Let's be honest. So no matter what role you're in, a lot of people are looking for something different. And so what I think about that, I actually just sent out an email about this. You shouldn't just be resume ready. You need to be interview ready in 2025.
Mm, that's
And
good.
so the point when you ask that question, I'm like, you should be starting now before you have decided a pivot. Just keeping your interview skills sharp for because for so many reasons outside, and I don't like to be like a doomsday person. I'm not saying like, always feel like you gotta be on, on alert. Like not saying it in that way, but advocating for yourself and for your skills and for money and for pay, that should not be something that you're only doing when you're in fight or flight mode because you were let go or because you need something else or because you're burned out or because of some other reason that is putting you in that situation. And so the short answer is do it now even before you
Yeah,
want a job. Like don't because you never know when another opportunity at your own organization might pop up as well. So stay
that's
sharp,
true.
stay strong, stay ready.
Yeah, yeah. It's so unfortunate because, especially in today's market, uh, almost every week, if not every other week, an organization is letting people go. We're seeing a lot of changes, not just in the private sector, but even in the public sector, and with government, right? And I think that for a lot of individuals, they are not prepared to start interviewing again, right? So the key thing that you said is start now. Start now. Let me ask you this question. What about those individuals that feel comfortable in their role and they're like, you know what, this is my retirement job. I'm gonna be here 7 more years. I'm not going anywhere. What would be your thoughts on how they can prepare themselves, especially when there are headhunters looking for candidates, and maybe they're not looking to leave, but it may be a great opportunity for them to either grow in their career or again pivot into another field or another career where they can make more money or even make a larger impact in what they're doing. What would be your suggestion for those individuals?
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing that stuck out the most when you say, people who are comfortable, the people that are most comfortable in their roles, in their industries, they've been in their same role for a decade. They want to retire
Yeah.
with their company. They feel very loyal. They've had great managers and great mentors, and they love their colleagues and all the wonderful things. Those are the people that are rocked the most
Mm,
when a change comes, right? That is not in their control. So if you want to have control over your next move, then be comfortable, be grateful, feel good in what you do right now, and be prepared for what is possible for you, right?
mm,
Dream of something else. Like what just ask yourself the question, if I needed to leave tomorrow
yeah.
for any reason, if I need to leave tomorrow, what would that look like? Would I be ready? What skills should I be working on? And what can I do in the next 30 days? Right? So
Mm.
I would challenge you to enjoy that comfort, be grateful, but also prepare yourself.
Prepare yourself. Man, that's awesome. And
Mhm.
and that's some really great advice. Again, especially as we talk about the market and what we're seeing in 2025. You just don't know if you'll be next. I like to say on the chopping block.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
being ready and being prepared.
Yeah, totally. And I just, again, my prediction and say, when I said it on my podcast, and I was like, there's going to be more mergers and acquisitions. I didn't think it was even going to be at this level. Like I'm literally every
Mm,
week, one new person is reaching out to me saying, my company just merged. My company, they're saying they're not sure. Right. Again, not trying to come from a news. It's just business. It's business cycles. Like
yeah.
and I want to come from that aspect. Like our careers are important and they bring us purpose and they bring us joy. And there's also this transactional piece to careers that we have to mentally brace ourselves for in 2025.
Yeah. I want to share this tip that one of my mentors gave me a few years ago.
Mm.
And he did this, and I believe he still does it today. He told me, he said, you know what? I'm always ready. And I said, "What do you mean by that?" And he told me, he said, "I'm applying for a job at least once a week." And I said, "Well, why? I mean, why?" Because, like, for me, applying for a job and getting ready to interview and getting your resume, like, for me, it's a lot of energy, right? And
Yeah.
doing all of that. It's something that you can't just do it all in one setting, right? And being prepared. But he shared with me, he said, "Yeah, I apply for a job at least once a week, and maybe get an interview at least once a month." And he actually follows through on that
Interviews.
interview. And he told me this though. He said there may be a lot of other opportunities that are better than what you're working in. You may not want to move just yet, but what you can always do is utilize, let's just say they make you an offer. You can
Mhm.
utilize that to negotiate your promotion or pay raise in your current role. And so that's just a little tip that I want to
Yeah.
pay it forward and just share with others.
Yes.
Now, have I done that? No. Just because for
Right.
me, it takes a lot of energy interviewing and preparing. And I'm just saying it's a lot of energy for me. And I don't understand how people interview every other week. And it's just like, it's just another day.
Well, you know why? You know why it feels probably, and everybody's different, right? And I'm sure there's other factors, but probably one factor of why it feels like a lot, Prince, is because you don't do it often. If you did anything once a month, gonna be it's definitely gonna feel better than doing it once
Yeah.
every 2 to 3 years for
Yeah.
sure. So
Yeah.
there's a
Definitely.
lot. That's like great advice. I've heard it before, but I haven't,
Mm,
nobody has said it recently. And there's a lot of great things about doing that. You learn about different opportunities, you learn about your
hmm.
value in the marketplace, you
Yeah.
learn about you always, and it's a form of safety for yourself too, knowing like I can go interview next month and get a job, versus now I gotta prepare for an interview.
Yeah.
That kind of energy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, well, let me ask you this. Even for those individuals that um, are looking for another position or looking to grow in their career, what are some common mistakes that candidates often make during the interview process? And these are for individuals that, the recruiter have given them a call, a phone screening, and they are ready to interview. What are some common mistakes that they often make, and how can they avoid them going into the interview?
Yeah. So if I think about somebody who has screened with a recruiter and now they're moving on to that manager and that panel interview, first off, congratulations. We love that for you. So that's exciting. I think first and foremost, and I say that jokingly, but also first off, celebrating it. I mean, we get in this like rat race mode sometimes when it comes to interviewing and be like, dang, I'm going on to the second round. First, celebrate yourself. So the second thing I would say is that people don't ask enough questions in the phone screen.
Mm,
They don't get a good understanding of the needs of the organization and the role. And I know people will say, but I ask a lot of questions and the recruiter doesn't know. And they say ask the manager. Okay, listen, let me tell you something. When you are interviewing, I want you to feel like I'm interviewing them as much as they're interviewing me. And you
right,
probably heard
right.
that before, and maybe that sounds trite, but that is a true statement. And this is actually, I see people lose out on offers because they are not asking enough questions. You're not coming in with the cap of what do I actually need to know to see if I actually even want this job, to tell them how I'm qualified, to tell them how I'm going to change their life, right? Like you don't
Yeah.
know enough information. And so questions like, for example, just even knowing what the org structure is like,
Oh,
knowing
that's
how many
good.
people you support, knowing the client, if it's in, HR specifically, what client groups are you supporting? What are the top priorities in the first 90 days? What are you taking off your manager's plate? Right? Those are the things that are going to be very telling
That's
of
good.
what they need from you. So I think first and foremost is not asking enough questions throughout the process. I had a client, Shanita. and she went to do the interview process. I was so proud of her. She was one of the people that did not make this mistake, and she got the job. She asked the manager so many questions with my help, but some she did on her own, and some we brainstormed together because we needed it for a presentation that she was doing. And she just was not afraid to send follow-up email after follow-up email. And it's easy for people to be like, I don't want to feel like I'm bugging them. I don't want them to feel like I'm not
Hmm.
qualified. But let me tell you something. Managers want to know that you are thoughtful, that you are curious. It actually shows them that you're thinking through and really putting in
Yeah.
effort. Now, I'm not saying ask questions for questions' sake, but if you need to know certain information, not being afraid to ask for it, and you can politely say to the recruiter, thank you so much. I understand you don't know the answer to that question. Thank you so much for even considering the question. What are some possibilities or like avenues for me to actually find out the answer to that question? Right. And putting it kind of back in their lap, because at the end of the day, the recruiter's job is to help and support you in this process,
That's
right?
good.
It has support you in that process. So those would be like two top mistakes, I would say. Um, there's a few other really common ones right now, but those would be the two I name right now.
Yeah, yeah. We often hear that a lot. Candidates just don't ask enough questions. They don't, and sometimes it seems, and it could feel even on the opposite end of the table, where per se, as an HR professional, I'm interviewing other individuals, whether that's
Mhm,
you're coming or applying for an HR role that I just so happen to be on the panel, or if I'm helping operations and I sit on the panel with them. Um,
mhm,
Individuals just don't ask questions, and for me, just as my opinion, I don't feel that individuals who don't ask questions, I don't feel like they're not as invested in that role, or maybe not the role, but the company, right? I want someone who can come in, and who is asking a lot of questions, because that lets me know that you just don't want another role, or another job, for money or pay, but you really want to help the business. You really want to ask those hard questions about the business, about operations, about learning, the key objectives. What are your key objectives for 2025? Right?
mhm,
Those are
mhm.
things that's going to help you. But I'm gonna tell you this though. I ask a lot of questions. If I ever interview, I always tell the recruiters, the hiring manager, whoever, I have a lot of questions. I let them know in the beginning. you
Yeah.
know, I say, hey, I got a lot of questions, but I'm gonna try to narrow them down, to based on your role or what you may or what you may know, right? And so out of that, I have a list of questions, but then I choose maybe two or three good questions that I know that they are like, that's a good question. I'm glad you asked. And most of the times that's their response. Don't
Mhm.
ask about the pay, because typically every recruiter should talk about that. And now, if they
Right.
don't talk about it, then you can ask about it, because who want to waste time, right? If
Right.
if you don't have a salary range within my ballpark, then what's the point of us even having a conversation?
Don't even get me started on salary mistakes, right? Like to your
Ah,
point,
that's another
a lot of
episode.
people, yeah, a whole nother episode where people just are just agreeing to all types of things
Yeah, go
and
through
not
the
really
whole
being
interview. Yeah, go through the whole interview and realize, oh, this not even close with what I want to make. so, so I want to talk a little bit about, going through interview, and we often hear about behavioral questions, right? They
yes.
have behavioral questions, and there's a strategy to answering those questions, and we're often taught to follow the star method, right? Follow the star method. So what I want you to do is tell us, what is the star method,
Mhm.
but you also have your own motto, that I want you to tell our listeners, because I think this is going to be really good for them, in answering those questions in the interview.
Yeah, yeah. So the common framework that people use to answer behavioral questions is the STAR method, right? Situation, task, action, result. It's ingrained in us. We learned it in
Yeah.
school and all the things, right? And let me tell you, I the STAR method is fine for a lot of basic interviews. If you're coming out of college, if you're going for internships, I think it works just fine, right? If you need something to get started with. Now, why I created what I call my impact model is for so many reasons. As somebody who has interviewed hundreds of people in HR, from field service engineers all the way to executive leadership, I was finding that people were leaving out key pieces of information. But then at the same time, we were losing great talent because our the people interviewing on the other side, as you mentioned, like if you're on an interview panel, you're in the interview panel, and I'm one of the HR business partners on the panel, and I'm talking to 4 or 5 other people that were on the panel with me, and then they give feedback about why somebody didn't work. But then I would ask a follow-up question, but did we ask the question or ask a follow-up question to understand that
Hmm.
particular skill or thing that you're talking about? So I was also realizing that this might sound bad, okay, but bad interviewers, because that is not something that we're teaching a lot, bad
Mm.
interviewers were keeping people back from positions that they were qualified for.
Wow. Wow.
And so I was like, there's a better way. And I know for me, I ask a lot of follow up questions because I want to know the details of what you're telling me. And I know people are anxious and they're excited, and there's just so many things keeping them back from telling me. And so I give people the benefit of the doubt. But a lot of interviewers will not do that because they're just not trained to do that. Or in their minds, they're not even thinking subconsciously that that's what they're doing. And so that's why I created the impact model. And I also found it very beneficial and important for people who are pivoting. Because if you're pivoting, you have to work probably 10 times as harder as
Yeah,
someone else,
that's true.
because you have to explain how your
Hmm.
transferable skills, and you have to sell yourself. And so this is literally the formula on how you sell your transferable skills as somebody who's pivoting. So that's why I actually created the impact model.
So dive into the impact model. What does it stand for, and how can our listeners utilize this impact model in their interviews?
Yep. So impact, just like the STAR method, right? So first I is starting with impact, and I'll go through each one. But first, impact. M is metrics. P breaks down into 4. So problem that you were solving, people that you partnered with, process that you put in place, and position that you held. And then C is challenge, a challenge that you overcame. And then T, tie it back. So tie it back to the company, the industry, or the role. Okay. And so, and it sounds like a lot, but just like the STAR method, all you got to do is go through the
Hmm.
prompts, you write it out. I'm telling you, once my clients, they practice with just 5 examples, they are pros, right? It's almost like how you do a presentation for the first time. You go through the impact model and you're able to nail it, right? You get more comfortable as
Hmm.
you practice. So, first, impact. So, the reason I have you start with impact, because the STAR method, right, has you do the result at the end. We
Right,
don't think
right.
like that anymore. The
Mm.
impact is the result at the beginning. What was the
Wow.
impact
We want to know
for
the
the
result
people
in the
that were
beginning.
impacted? What was the tangible thing or outcome? Because we have been TikTokified. Okay. People start with hook, right? How do you want to hook the person from the beginning? Okay, so for example, I'll give you an example, and this is one of the ones that I've used quite a bit. It's one of my own, where I start with, and it can be any question. This is the other thing too. We won't have time to talk about it all, but the best part too about the impact model is that you use 5 of your top examples, and it can answer 90% of the behavioral questions that will come up. It's flexible. Okay. So anyway, so they will ask you any behavioral question, and you'll start with what the impact was, and you'll tie it into whatever question that they're asking you. And so for the first impact example, to be like, okay, I implemented a new PTO policy for an organization of 350 associates across the company, and I saved the company actually 250K and increased employee well-being with better PTO usage. So that would be the impact, right? Imagine starting with that from the beginning.
Right, right. it's just
right?
like
All that stuff.
gravitating you to say, "Hey, tell me more. Well, how did you do it?" Right?
Yep. Yep. And then metrics. So then going into metrics, that's all about what was the amount of money you saved? What was the number of people that you touched? The time that you saved? Any changes of behaviors that you saw? Because it doesn't have to just be, dollars and figures. It can also be like, what was the actual thing that you noticed or saw that was a result of the change? And so you can reiterate what you already said above, which is like, again, I saved the company 250K, which was unprecedented, right, at that time, and increase the employee PTO usage, right? And then we go into kind of similar to the STAR method, which is like task and action, but this breaks it down specifically what the recruiter or what the manager and the panel is actually looking for, but they don't tell you. I'm all about answering the unasked questions, right?
Right,
So this
right.
is where you start to really get into the meat of that. So first, kind of talk about now instead of like situation at the front. Now you're going to talk a little bit like specifically what problem were you trying to solve, right? Then you talk about who are you partnering with, what process did you actually implement, and now what was your role. So you can go into the meat and potatoes of that. One line per, that's all you need to just talk about and bring that in. And I love, I'm not going to go through all of it, but one example is talking about this, especially for a lot of my black women, my women, like we are like really afraid to talk about us and what we accomplished. And so we
Mhm.
say we a lot. And so this actually helps
Mm.
people who struggle with that. You're going to talk about what you actually did with the position part. So, like, I led this project. Of course, I partnered with all the key stakeholders, but I was the leader, the executor. I was the one that actually put together X, Y, and Z. And it reiterates it in the process because, again, as I think about and reflect on the panels that I've been on, and people are like, but like, I don't know what they actually executed and what they talked about. That would be a big question that people would say. They're like, well, what was your actual role? What did they actually do? I don't know what they actually did, right? And so this is a really important and really, really key. Okay, so going to the C. All right, so the challenge. Now, this is not in the STAR method. Some people, there's a star, there's like a amended STAR method though that has like a learning or something. So this is kind of that vibe. But essentially, you want to talk about a challenge that you overcame in the situation. What was an aha moment you had or a struggle you had or something you bumped up against? This is actually just going to show your critical thinking skills. It's going to show, why this was such a big thing, a big example to share. This is also going to give you credit for, because a lot of times what I see is like people say, yep, I did X, Y, and Z, and that was it. And there's no complexity behind that, right? There's no complexity.
Yeah, what
And
made
people
it
are looking
challenging?
for people. Yeah, people are looking for you solving a complex problem. So this gives you that opportunity to talk about why I overcame that. And also, we're just not good at talking about the challenges we overcame, right? I wish people did this more. And then the last piece, and I'll pause for any interactions you have, would be tying it back to the company. Essential for pivoters. Essential. You cannot leave any unanswered question about why that particular example and those skills that you had are relevant to the company. You want to make sure that they walk away knowing why that's relevant to the company, the role, or the industry. Okay. So this can flex a lot, and I teach my clients how to actually weave this into the specific question. But you can just say like, I know that your company is going to be implementing some brand new policies, right? And so I've done PTO changes and policies, and I understand change management. And so my ability to navigate multi-state policies, my ability to understand technology information, my ability to all the skills that I have to successfully navigate that. I know that you mentioned you're going to be working on a change management policy for X, Y, and Z, or you're going to be working on other changes, and all companies actually work on changes. So I know I'm going to be able to bring that change management skill directly to your organization in the first 90 days, right? So you just want to be so specific and tying it back to the company. And that's huge. If you're not doing that today, that's why your skills are not being sold and why, if you're struggling with interviews and not landing offers, that could be the critical missing piece.
Yeah. Well, that was a lot of good information. If you're listening, feel free to rewind and take all of that in because that is some good stuff. And what you're doing is really breaking what people are used to doing and creating something that's going to make a bigger impact in their interview. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Let me ask you this: just because you created this impact model, and typically I would ask this question at the end, but how can individuals reach out to you and like, hey, uh, I want to learn more about this impact model. Do you have a form? Do you have a form, or do you have something that can help me, or can you help me? How can people reach out to you?
Yeah, for sure. So I am super active on LinkedIn. I'm always in the DMs. If you got a question, don't hesitate. That's one way. You can find me on LinkedIn. I go through a lot of details and stuff on my podcast, the HR Pivot that you mentioned. You can also sign up for my newsletter at phalangize.com. So www.phalangize.com. Yeah, and there's just lots of I give it all away. Like you can definitely see it. But if you also want to work with me, if you go to my website as well, or you go on LinkedIn, book a consultation call. It's free. It's an hour. We get deep. I make sure you understand exactly what you need and what you're missing.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So I got one more question for you. Individuals, they've talked to the recruiter, they've bombed the interview. What's next? A lot of people think, okay, I finished the interview, I'm good. All I need to do is just hear from them. What are some other steps in between that while you're waiting for the offer, or after the interview, where individuals should do right after?
Yeah, yeah. So a couple of things. First and foremost, when you send your thank you notes out, have one that I love that I've been testing out that is going over well. Send in a video thank you note. You want to stand
Whoa.
out? Send a video thank you note and Loom free. All you gotta do is do Loom. It's very simple. It makes you do it under 5 minutes. You don't want it that long
Wow.
anyway, but you can literally and you just send the link and it's just leaving another nice impression. Shows a little modernization in the process as well. People get so hundreds of thank you notes, right? So it's
Mhm.
just another way to kind of stand out.
Let me say this before you go to the next one. It is
Yeah.
so funny you mentioned that because I had a guest on one of my episodes, Rona, and she talked about doing video, a short video introducing yourself to the company, or to the recruiter or the hiring leader. And the fact that you mentioned, hey, do a quick video instead of just a normal boring email, which 9 times out of 10, it's I'm if I receive that, if I receive the email, whether I'm recruiting or the business partner or the one of the hiring leaders, I'll be like, "Oh, that's cute. Thank you," and then send a formal email. Thank you for and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But video, right? This is one way that you can set yourself apart. Aside from the other candidates that have gone through and did their interview and are sending thank you notes and emails, so doing video, I would say that is something that is definitely going to make you stand out.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, and the other thing, this might be I don't know, like this is what people are looking for, but my biggest thing after interviews is just to calm your nerves because I
Mm,
see so many people actually spiraling more after the interview than
yeah.
before. And they're like, it's been 48 hours. I haven't heard anything. And so I really preach to my clients, like have a post interview routine. I know for me, I close my computer, I go do
Yeah.
something physical, I treat myself, I
Mm.
celebrate,
Think about something
I call
else.
it something else, call a friend, whatever it is, something,
Yeah.
because then you're spiraling and then just let it go, let it be, let it
Yeah.
be.
And I think a lot of people, they after the interview, it's like they get anxious, like, oh, how did I do? Did I do good? Oh man, I messed up on that. I could have done better. Oh my God, that. And it's like you're in this battle. You're in this fight with yourself.
Yeah.
But again, like you said, taking different things, go exercise, go take a walk, take a breather, call your best friend, have a conversation like, hey, I just went through the interview. Just do something to stop,
Yeah.
so you don't have to think about and critique yourself on every little thing. At the end of the day, we're all human. right? And so just
Mhm.
because somebody else may talk better than you and use more corporate words does not mean that they're the better fit for the
Right.
position, right? And
Right.
so it's also interesting. I just want to share this too. Individuals, they may often find out, another, about another candidate that's interviewing, and then they
Mm.
start comparing themselves, right?
Mhm.
Don't
Yep.
do that. I often tell people, look, I don't want to know, even if I have contacts in that organization, people that I'm connected with, my network. I tell them, hey, don't let me know any of the candidates. I could care less.
All right.
you know, because I don't want to have to, think about them and look them up on LinkedIn and compare and contrast. When at the end of the day, when you go through an interview, you want to be authentically yourself. Don't try to
Right.
be like nobody else. Share why you would be the best candidate for that organization, and go in confidence, knowing that you did your best and you did what you were supposed to do.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. I love that advice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing a lot of great tips. Did you have any last minute tips, tricks for our audience that they can take a practice, or just actionable tips for them?
Yeah. I think one, just again, as I said at the beginning, once you decide to pivot, don't let anything deter you, right? Just stick to your guns, stick to your passion, and be focused on that. Two, if it hasn't been working, or if you have the opportunity to start fresh, find tools that are actually going to help you pivot in 2025, right? Don't
Mm,
do the old and outdated and the old resume one page rules. Like, get the modern stuff and go after it. And then three, just believe in yourself. That's it. That's it.
mm.
I just want people to feel empowered, and I think that's why I do what I do, because too much times we let a lot of society and things outside of us control what our next move is. But you have ownership on everything you do. I believe that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you again, man. This is some awesome stuff, and I really encourage our listeners to, check out her podcast. She has a lot of great things, and you go on live on LinkedIn every now and then, right?
Do yes, I do. Pretty much once a week I go on, so lots of good stuff there.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I always love to end on an encouraging note, especially as we talk about interviewing and finding your next move. I'm reminded of the scripture is from Jeremiah 29:11, and it says, "For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." So, when preparing for an interview, remember that God's plan for you are filled with hope and with purpose. Approach each opportunity that you have with confidence, as we talked about, and knowing that every step you take, whether if you get that answer that's yes or no, it is leading you towards the future that He has in store for you. We want to thank our guests for joining us and giving us such valuable insights and how you can be the best candidate in your interviewing skills in 2025. To our listeners, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and follow the Transparent HR podcast, share it with a friend, and leave a review. Your support helps us to continue to bring transparent and practical HR insights straight to you. I'm Prince Tate, and until next time, keep navigating your career with clarity and with confidence. See ya.